APLD digital stock price has continued the ascent over the last few weeks here, reaching levels very close to $40 before pulling back come Friday's action. Should we expect a bearish next few weeks to come here for price to chop down lower, or we're looking at a level where it just begun, upper levels to happen soon? These ascending lows that are in this very structured area that when you connect the dots, you get a massive area of value. We did start to lose that support level around, I believe it was around $32 or so, starting to crumble down here. Price did drop from that, going to a low of 20 before getting this U recovery, now getting quite aggressive over the last 2 weeks here. So very good signs. So of course, from the weekly long term, we got to keep an eye on these $40 to $37 highs, right? There's some very tough resistance over here, but outside of that, price is doing very well. Although we are in that high resistance area, we did feel that a little bit with today's action pulling back. Price still looks very good here from the long term, and we could see a break of $40 coming in the next few months here. So from the daily here, we're clearly overextended right within a short-term time frame. Price has gone from that blue dashed $20 level all the way up close north to $40, getting very close. Right, that's 95% in just 19 days. So price is extended, but you've had, some favorable, relatively favorable earnings in here. You've had some bullish news. You've had a lot of fuel to the fire, as well with just a very deep correction price is rebounding from. So there's a lot of factors that could have made this a quick recovery, and it's been. So right now, I do think that price, more likely than not, should fill this gap. Right, you clearly see this gap up. Right, price going from that 32.50, gapping up, pressing close to 39 before giving it back. Right, today's action, we did actually take over that first day high, and we were looking to climb here once again, getting close to 39, but coming today, you gave all that gains back. So at these gap up areas, if you show some sort of weakness like this, especially taking over the high of yesterday and showing that false breakout like you're just going to gap and go, get aggressive and test all-time high, of course they got flipped on its head. So I do think that energy is going to favor the sellers here to at least fill that gap at $33. I mean, it's perfectly here in the chart, and it makes total sense for price to get there, fill that gap. And at that point in time, we're either going to consolidate here, in my opinion, right, build out some sort of a base, come down, fill that, consolidate, chop around, maybe go a little bit below, and then bounce up, or price is going to fill that gap and then immediately start to run. I definitely think this is an uptrend where you don't want to get in the way and short, and there is no sign that it's going to stop. Although it's extended, it's still a very aggressive mover here. APLD, naturally, it is. I mean, just look at these movements here in the past, right? Multiple stages of price being too extended, and then it doubles and triples, right? So it always has that, possibility. And not to mention as well, when APLD does reverse, it typically takes more time as well with the bounces, right? You have this big consolidation for a few weeks, chopping around, getting these top outs before you drop, right? And over the last few months here, what do we look at for this recovery? Just a lot of energy building around, playing around, looking to break down, looking to go up, really just kind of building energy, consolidating before seeing right here that next movement. So although a weak Friday, and I think this could, pull it back for a few days, the medium-term forecast is still very strong here. There's no indication that this is the top out. Was this a nasty pullback at a big resistance? Yes, but it's not always black and white in the market. I do think there's a good chance come the next few weeks and months here that we do actually test back towards $40. And if you break over it, guys, going to that weekly perspective, I mean, there's a very, very clear level there. So we could see a pretty good chunk of change here being added to APLD, as long as it doesn't give back too much of that gap fill. That would be my, red alarm bell here if APLD was to get bearish, right? Now on the 1 hour time chart, you see that gap up. Price just consolidating more or less. It's natural for price to come back to fill these gaps, especially being so close. So if you get to 33, you're not holding very strong and you knife down, we might see a detour here where price goes through some extent of a downside. But even then, I don't think it'll last too long. I do think that APLD is going to at least get a clean test back towards $40 here. I think it makes a lot of sense. And although we did see this pullback today, I still think price is in a strong position. Although there is some variance on the table, right? Is price going to pull back, fill this gap, immediately find that area of value, then launch back up? Or is it going to take its time, right? Consolidating, building for a few days, chopping around, and then heading higher. But I do believe both scenarios favor the bulls here. We just might see a few days to possibly max a week of dulling around, consolidating. Once again, APLD is pretty prone to consolidate off these big movements up here. Large consolidation. You've seen the same thing as well right around October. It's very large moving up. Even these micro consolidations like this, then of course more long term over here. So we could enter a consolidation phase. That is a possibility, but as of right now, the chart's still strong, guys. It definitely still leans to the buyers here. But let's look at that $33 level. Then the short chain here, once again, at that gap fill, as well with that overall support level. So that's your 2-in-1 go level to watch over the next few days here. If you guys found any value, go and drop a like and a sub down below. We're going to continue to track APLD about 2 times per week. Till the next time, guys, have a good one as always. Peace.